And implementation is in two phases. The first phase is what is on ground now, where they were trading in goods and services. Then the second phase will bring in intellectual property, investment, and so on. Then let's go quickly. We have only the 10 minutes. Yeah, we'll do it. Origin of AfCFTA. AfCFTA came as a reason of certain things. When there's multilateral organizations, there are agreements that doesn't cover some specific scope that you think you can cover. And that is what AfCFTA has done for Africa. Most of the time, international organizations in their multilateral agreements don't give a place to African countries and their peculiarities. But AfCFTA was an opportunity to do that. And again, there was resulted the reason that there was not arose skepticism about multilateralism and then about what? International help from outside. And that's why in 2012, they agreed that there be a different body to take care of the African situation. True to type, by 2018, it was brokered. By 2019, when Nigeria signed, it became operational. The operation now became a first point of challenge for the whole continent. For Nigeria, not signing was the first challenge, but the whole of Africa, operationalizing became a challenge. They said 30th May 2019. They shifted it to June 2020 because of COVID. Then they came again, another shift to July 2020. And then now they say it's operationalized since 1st January 2021. We are yet to see that, and we are going to examine that. Move on. Nigeria signed as the 34th member and supposedly ratified at that point too. Move on. Can we go to the next slide? The targets have already spelled out. The targets are clear, the aims are clear. Boost African trade, stimulate investment innovation, foster structural transformation, and then rationalize overlapping agreements with setting targets. They say they will fully implement increase income by 9% in 2035, leave 50 million people out of poverty. This is just few of the targets that they have set for themselves that will be achieved in 2035 before the next African Union agenda of after 2036. Let's move on. AfCFTA is not a new thing. In global literature, AfCFTA is simply free trade, where trade among members trade head among members are given preferential treatment. And it is free trade when measures that hinders trade, either tariff or other quantitative measures, are removed, so that among the members, trade will exist. In theory, the most used theory for AfCFTA or common market or economic integration is the custom union theory, advocated by John Viner. It is the theory draws from the free trade that is known for the neoclassicals, but went on to talk about the trade in terms of coming together as a common market, integrated as a common market. But its main concern is that no matter what, trade will go in two ways. It will be either trade will be created or trade will be diverted. And again, in empirical literature, three stands are there. Some people say it will not yield anything good. Some writers say it will not yield, it's going to use a lot of good. And then there is the midway people who say it's going to yield either of these two, but on certain conditions. And that is where the challenges started coming from. Next slide. Now the challenges. The challenges and the opportunity is where my paper or my discussion is going to be made. I intentionally brought the big brother Nigeria. We know the big brother Nigeria, largest economy in Africa, 200 million people, everything. No, Nigeria is almost good in everything. I intentionally leave it there because in AfCFTA, your signature, your ratification is not the end point. It's only a means to an end. And as we are saying, why will Nigeria, the big brother, hesitate? It's already a challenge. We all know that it's not true. The president himself went to the African Union, told them we still need to consult. He came home, even the people at home are still consulting. When other smaller countries are imbibing the agreement, are signing on the agreement. In fact, the law of AfCFTA says immediately 22 countries signed and ratified. It's operational. The 34th member, from inception, Nigeria has been part of it. Even the first agreement before this was the Abuja Treaty, which had long ago, and Nigeria was a forerunner, even in the establishment of AfCFTA. But why would Nigeria hesitate? It shows there are challenges. And in the presence of that, in trying to stamp it on Nigeria's face, when Nigeria ratified, the date, it is recorded that Nigeria is the 34th member of AfCFTA. And so the challenges as it's arranged is in 3 phases. The first phase is our own internal crisis. When I say crisis, now political and economic, socio-economic crisis. Because no matter what, they all have effect in trade, and then trade also affects the internal mechanism of our economy. And that is why I talk about we are still a mono-product economy, just as has been mentioned by the previous speakers. We still a mono-product economy, depending largely on crude oil. Even the other products we export is primary products, agriculture and the other extractive industries. And unfortunately, it's the same product that is most of integrating countries have. So who trades with who? What are you giving me? And it's all at that primary level. And there's no effort to move to the next level. Again, we look at the important macroeconomic variables in Nigeria. There are problems even within the country. And so businesses, households, and government policies will hardly thrive within a bad, non-working economy. That is the first phase. That is internal mechanism. And then the political economy of it. That is Nigeria now with the rest of Africa first, and then the rest of the world. We say there is an unequal bet. That is demography, not geometry. That's demography, sorry. It's talking about population. In terms of the agreement, how do you put Nigeria with the rest of Africa? In West Africa alone, Nigeria has taken a chunk of the economy. And you see, there is going to be free trade. That is only theoretical, I think. Then another challenge is overlapping FTAs. Most of the other countries, including Nigeria, have other agreements of free trade with different countries, even within the same AfCFTA. Though for AfCFTA is good, in the sense that AfCFTA says they are going to harmonize with time. But what about the countries that are not in AfCFTA? All these countries have agreement with them. That will pose on that challenge. Then trade diversion. Of course, most of our African countries have problem with trade creation. Most of the time, if you go to the neighboring Francophone countries, most of the things they have there are imported from France. And so one of the fears of Nigeria again was that trade will be diverted from the union because it will come from outside. Or even within the union, even Nigeria cannot produce at competitive price. It will be at high cost. They could have gotten it from other places at lower cost. But within the AfCFTA, they will still get it at higher cost, and then it will affect welfare. Another issue was colonial ties. Just as I said, Nigeria was planning West African money. Before you know, Cote d'Ivoire and France went and did the same thing that Nigeria and the rest of them were doing. Does that help? It's a challenge. There are other things that you can take, and those are issues. There are plenty of issues. And then finally, competitiveness. Competitiveness is a problem with the Nigerian economy. Even the goods and services. The services in Nigeria has gone beyond the Nigerian boundary. But goods and services are not competitive. That is why manufacturers associations say we need to consider certain things. Because of the internal macroeconomic issues that's affecting the cost of production. Because of smuggling issues. Because of different hindrances. That's why goods and services The services sector has gone, just as they have mentioned, have gone beyond the Nigerian boundary. But goods and services, goods are still a problem. And that is why the competitiveness variables, global indicators, Nigeria is at the lower rungs of them all. And that will also be a challenge. So when Nigeria has hesitated, the challenges are clear. But again, they have no choice. And that's why they still signed on to it. So even within the challenge, there's no choice again. We have signed, we have ratified. And outside it will not do better. So the next slide is maximizing the opportunities. I know my fellow presenter will do much more on this. But I just have a glance of it. Nigeria can maximize the opportunities after, based on macro level, I've done this. Because there are so many things. Free trade, like when the president signed, he said Nigeria should not only be, after should not only be about goods, but about goods made in Africa. And then Nigeria about goods made in Nigeria, not goods that are tripping to come back to give us dumping issues. And then that the macroeconomic stability is important. There's fear of revenue loss. Like Nigeria, that depends a lot on trade tax, that's custom duty. The customer has told us they are going to generate 4 trillion this 2022. I don't think they took after into cognizance. And if they do, we are waiting how they are going to do it, especially with the fiscal squeeze we have in our country and then the downward ebb in the economic activity. So there are so many other things, but the most important is that Nigeria at this time have no choice. To maximize opportunity in after, we must rise and look at our macroeconomy. We must rise and tinker with our SMEs. We must rise and tinker with our human resource. Nigerians are all over the world. Where I work, in the last 1 year, 5 people have moved abroad. In the last less than 1 year, 5 in my department alone. So it shows that Nigeria has the capacity. But the environment in which we operate is a problem. And as we say, we don't have a choice right now. We must capitalize on after to get our economy going. It's a very good source of growth for the economy. And when we talk of growth in this sense, we are not talking growth in terms of GDP growth, but in terms of inclusive growth. So that the growth will be distributed, reduce inequality, reduce gender disparity, and then bring up youth empowerment. And that is my position. As we discuss further other issues on at the panel level, other things will be revealed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Now we'll call on Mrs. Bolanle to also give our presentation before we get into the questions. Please, a round of applause for her as well.
Thank you. I'm very grateful, sir, for the opportunity extended to the CEO, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, who is unavoidably absent and has delegated me to represent him here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all. Today, we are talking about AfCFTA, that is African Continental Free Trade Area. My colleague here has informed us on what AfCFTA stands for, and I wouldn't want to waste much of our time. I will skip all the things that he has said and then move into every other thing. Before I move into that, I'll briefly tell us about NAPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Like you rightly said, we promote non-oil export. That is our core mandate. And to do that effectively, we have the vision to make the whole world a marketplace for made in Nigerian goods. Besides that, we have our mission statements, that is to diversify the Nigerian economy and increase the non-oil products and services for a sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Our strategy, we know already. We are moving away from oil and we are promoting made in Nigerian goods and services. So to the subject of saying now, we know that the question will be, so they have ratified it, they have signed, they have ratified. Is it now implemented? What do we see at play now? Yes, what we need to see now is the implementation. Technically, they said, okay, it has started from January 2021, but up till now, are we still doing it? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you more. Now, we need to talk about what the benefits are on AfCFTA. What are the objectives? One, we want to have a single market, single and integrated market, where we have all the players, both big and small, like PZ, like Nestle Foods, and the young SMEs that do not even have names that are well known. We want to have them. And then we want to contribute to the movement of capital and natural persons. We've heard about how Nigerians are moving away from the country. And we also want to lay the foundation for the establishment of Continental Customs Union. We want to promote and attain economic development in all the states that are part of this agreement. And then we want to enhance competitiveness of Nigerian economies and the other countries. And as much as possible, we want to have our countries industrialized, developed to a standard level that we can say we are migrating from developing countries to a developed economy. Now, what are the benefits of AfCFTA? The benefits are large. One, we are talking about industrial development. If you want to export any of our goods and services, firstly, we must be able to mass produce. And when we want to mass produce, we need to have industrialization in place. And then we need to have our infrastructure to support infrastructural development. If the infrastructures are not well developed, we cannot talk about it. So in a way, AfCFTA will help us to be able to develop our infrastructure. And then we need to have, it's going to help us have our trade liberalized. Like I said, all the other young players will be in the market, same market with the big players. So the issue of monopoly will not arise. And then we want to have absence or low tariff. That in a way is going to help us to have people that are already running away from taxation to be able to do formal businesses across African countries. That is another benefit because tariffs will be reduced to the barest minimum level. And then the agreement is also going to strengthen African nations. And it will help us to be more reliant on ourselves rather than waiting for interventions here and there, waiting for trade subsidies and what have you. AfCFTA is going to promote diversification of economy across all the African continent. So what are our aspirations on African Continental Free Trade Area? We want to be able to diversify and sustain our economy. And then we want to be able to network with African countries, our neighbors. We want to be able to network with them. We want to be able to compare ourselves with top economies like South Africa, like Egypt. We want to be able to compete favorably among them. We also want to have our missions well articulated.